What's up, YouTube family? I'm so excited to bring you this vlog today on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day here in the United States. Such an awesome day. So if you're in the States, happy Thanksgiving to all of my American family. If you're not in the United States, well, happy Thursday to you. I'm so excited to bring you this vlog today on Thanksgiving Day because I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine named Jeff Kozak who lives up in Chicago. And Jeff has this radical story of redemption. If you saw the promo that I put out on Monday, you understand that Jeff is this really cool dude that's got this beautiful story of redemption that he's going to tell you. If you haven't seen that yet, click the card up here so you can check that out. I've known Jeff for a couple of years and we connected because of skateboard ministry. Specifically, we connected because I was doing some screen printing. I needed some help and Jeff came through, man. He taught me everything I needed to know. He hooked me up with some supplies. I mean, the guy was awesome. I haven't always known Jeff's full testimony. I haven't always known his full story, but for some reason a couple of weeks ago I was praying about this vlog that I'm bringing to you today. And Jeff came to my heart. I was actually sitting in church on Sunday morning and I was thinking about the message that I had to tell you guys. So I reached out to Jeff that afternoon and I was telling him kind of where I was at and told him that he was on my heart and just asked him, hey man, do you have a story that connects with what I'm asking you? He's like, yeah, dude, totally. He says, can I call you? So he called me up and he began to tell me this story about him and his life that I'd never heard before. And man, it is beautiful. So I have to let you guys hear Jeff's story. You need to meet this guy. You need to connect with him. Connect with Testimony Skateboards on Instagram after you see this video because Jeff is a dude that you totally want to know. Check this out.
My name's Jeff Kozak, and this is my testimony about being reclaimed. Church was always something that was more important to my mom and grandma than to my brother and I growing up. We would go on occasional Sundays and mainly on Christmas and Easter, but that was because it was an important thing to my mom. And we would go there, and quite honestly, the most interesting thing that would happen would be hearing somebody sneeze and my brother and I trying to figure out who it was that sneezed. We had really no reason to be there. We weren't getting anything out of it. We didn't understand any of it. And we just tried to behave the best we could so that we didn't get the look from my mom. At some point in our teens, we ended up not going anymore. And I really don't know why that was. We kind of had a say in it where we were given the choice to go with my mom and grandma, and we obviously chose not to go most of the time. So life began going by very quickly right after high school. It seemed like I was just checking everything off of a box. I was getting a job, check that off the box. Go to work, go to save up money, get a car, get an apartment, checking all these boxes off. Getting a wife, checking the box off. Having kids, checking another box off. The most important thing in my life at the time was punk rock and alcohol. And my life was centered around that. My life was just a nonstop decision making around when is the next time that we're going to drink, when's the next party. And as we're doing these things, as we're playing these punk rock shows and as we're having these parties and getting wasted, in the back of my mind, I'm already planning the next time I could do that type of thing. And I really wasn't enjoying any part of my life. I was very empty. It was very hopeless. I had no joy in anything. And the things that should have been important were just things. They were not important whatsoever. So the decisions I was making that were kind of important, you know, purchasing a home, thinking about having a family and being able to provide for them, they really weren't things I was thinking about. There was more just an alcohol-fueled life, and it was super miserable. I ended up allowing alcohol to consume me so much that it wrecked my marriage. It caused me to not think properly. It caused me to make decisions that led to a divorce, and I owned up to that. I never denied what's taken place and the type of person I became. But the end result of that type of sin was death, and in this case, it was death of a marriage. And what I really didn't realize was that everything that I thought about, that I've checked off the boxes and built up and became, and all of that was about to go away. And at the time I was working at the steel mill, working shift work, and I came home one early morning and my wife at the time said, you know, we're done. I want you to leave. And as she's saying these words kind of penetrated the air in the kitchen, and they came, and I could actually almost feel these words entering my ears and into my heart and into my mind. And it just hit me that I really blew it. I blew it for her. I blew it for our marriage. I blew it for my kids. And I felt super, super depressed and empty and ashamed that I would let something get a hold of me the way that did. My daughter Samantha, while this was happening, she came into the kitchen. She was 5 or so at the time, and she said, "Where are you going, Daddy?" And I said, "I'm leaving." And she said, "Well, who's going to tuck me in now at nighttime?" And I kind of just didn't have an answer, but I knew that I really blew it for this kid. I blew it for my daughter and my son, who was an infant. And I wouldn't be able to tuck them in at night. I didn't know what was going to happen beyond that day. I slept in my car for a few days, but this is in the middle of winter, and that wasn't going to work out. I was living in the car in the steel mill, going to work, going in my car, not telling anybody, because I didn't even know who to turn to or what to say. So I ended up going to my mom and dad's house, and I remember showing up there late at night, knocking on the door, knowing that I'm the first one in our whole family that I know of that is going to be going through a divorce, and that couldn't keep their family together the way that everybody else did. So I knock on the door, and my parents answer, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I had to totally fess up to them what had happened, what had become, and how it got to this point. And they welcomed me in and loved on me. I didn't expect that. I felt unlovable, and I felt like I couldn't love anyone. A few weeks went by, but it was just, I was so empty because of not having anything that I've known to be a normal part of my life around anymore. And we ended up going to sleep one night, and I laid there, and I had a razor blade in my hand, and I was thinking, this is it. You know, I have no point of being here anymore. And I was going to take my own life that night. I couldn't do that. But what I do remember is taking that razor blade and carving a big X on my chest. I really don't even know why I did that. Pretty much out of response that I couldn't give or receive love anymore. I just felt so empty, so out of it. And at the time I'm doing this, my mom walks in the door and sees this happening to her son, sees him hurting himself like this. And I had no answer for her. I had no way of explaining my way out of that. I have no way of covering that up. And we had a pretty good discussion that night that it can't go on like that. I can't live that way. I ended up laying down, and that was the first time I ever really talked to God. That was the first time that I said my first prayer. And as I laid my head down that night, I just simply said, "God, if you're real, don't let me wake up tomorrow." So as I fell asleep, not knowing what was going to happen, the fear of that unknown, what if God really answers that prayer? I went to sleep, And the next morning, the sun was so bright, and it shined through my parents' level lower blinds and was just beating down on my face. And I remember kind of a freaky feeling, but I sat up. I knew he didn't take me. I knew that that he responded by not answering my prayer. And it was the first time that I really had some joy. I sat up and I was changed. My mindset was changed. My heart was changed. I knew that things were going to work out. I knew that things were going to get better. I remember thinking those things, but then at the same time looking down, taking my shirt off, thinking about that. And God took away the scar from the night before of me cutting my skin with a razor blade. It was completely 100% healed, and no sign of me even doing that. Yet on my shirt there was the blood mark, the X that had been there. And I knew that he did that. It wasn't something I made up. It was him changing my life. Fast forwarding, I knew that he began a good work in me. I knew that he was real, and I knew he came into my life, and slowly but surely he was gonna make this okay for me. So this old barn behind me, it's very evident that the exterior of it is been patched. It's weathered, it's worn out, and at one point somebody built this with their hands. It had a purpose. It was functioning, and over the years they spent many hours probably restaining, repainting, renailing, fixing this up from the outside. And in many ways, that's what I was doing with my life with alcohol. That emptiness feeling, that unfulfilled feeling, I was patching up and doing all the work on the outside. But what you don't see about this barn is that the inner boards have been rotting too, and that it's probably unsafe for its use. It doesn't have a purpose, really. It needs to be really rehabbed. And that is what God is doing with my heart. I can patch up my outside as much as I want, but in the end, the inside is the part that's rotting out. The boards that make up my heart, and that's where the real work needs to be done. And God is doing those things a little bit at a time. When I asked him if he was real, I allowed him to come into my life. I allowed him to enter into my life, and he's began a great work in my life. And he's changing me from on the inside out. One day, all the broken pieces of my life that I've destroyed, he's going to take all those broken pieces and make something beautiful out of it. And in the Bible, in Philippians 1:6, it says that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. And I truly believe that. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But I'm allowing him to do the work that it takes in me. I'm trusting him in that, because I can't do that on my own. In many ways, I'm like this worn-out old barn that's being repurposed. These type of barns, they either get fixed up completely, or they eventually fall down into a pile that somebody will use the boards once in a while for an art project. But God has something greater than an art project in mind when he reclaims us. He wants to bring himself glory, but he wants to draw others closer to him through our stories. And I'm thankful that he's done that, because without him, I would just be a pile of broken wood laying in a field. And I'm very thankful for that.
You know, God's grace and power and sovereignty is overwhelming to me. And I've got a story of my own that I want to share with you, but I just feel like you need to focus on Jeff's story today. And so at some point in the future, I'm going to tell you a story of my own that maybe you can connect between Jeff's story and my story. You know, oftentimes we go about our lives and we think that we just kind of live in this bubble and that, you know, we're going through all these things and we're the only person on earth that's ever gone through those things, and nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is we are all broken, messed up people, but God is sovereign, God is awesome, and God loves us so much that He sent Jesus to die for us because there was nothing that we could do to be good enough to save ourselves. Now, essentially, if you don't know what that means, you know, salvation is just simply, you know, God set these rules. He created everything, He put everything in place, and He set these rules in place. And by doing so, He said, you know, if you'll live your lives like this, you'll be in fellowship with me. And God never intended for man to sin. God never intended for us to break the rules, but for some reason we convinced ourselves that breaking the rules and following our own path was more wise and better than following God's path. And so we became this broken people. We became this broken creation. But you know what? God saw from the beginning, and we're foolish to think, well, God created it and He didn't know it was going to happen. Of course He knew it was going to happen. But God created a pathway from us, I believe, from the beginning of time, where He was going to send Jesus, and Jesus was going to be our redemption. Jesus was going to be the one that gave us the ability to be restored. Just like that old barn that you just saw right there. I mean, in today's culture, right, old barnwood or driftwood or whatever is kind of a cool thing to have in your house. But if you think about it, that old broken thing that's just kind of laying out there in a field is really just that. It's this old broken thing. But when someone takes it, when a master craftsman takes that and he turns it into something beautiful, you'll spend lots of money for it and put it in your house. Well, the same story applies to our lives. God takes this broken, messed up thing that's just a pile of rubble, and He turns it into this awesome and beautiful story. So I pray that you'll connect with Jeff. Again, look him up on Instagram, Testimony Skateboards. You can click the link down there. I'll have it in the description for you below. You need to get to know this guy. And Jeff has got some radical things planned for the Midwest. I look forward to seeing what he's going to do in 2019. And I'm just stoked that he's my friend. I'm stoked that I know him and that he gives me the opportunity to be his friend. And he's willing to be transparent with me, but also with you guys, to let you know that, guys, we don't have to live in brokenness. We don't have to live in corruption. We can live in the fullness of what God created us to be through Jesus. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I love you guys. God bless. Bye.